This is the videotape deposition of Justin Gossett as corporate representative of Invitation Homes Realty LLC in the matter of Jamie Orlandi et al. Versus Invitation Homes Realty LLC et al. Today's date is May the 28th, 2026. The time is approximately 8:59 a.m. Would counsel please introduce themselves for the record?
John Thomas and Savannah Cooley on behalf of the plaintiff.
And Philip Howell and Rachel Grimley on behalf of the defendants.
Would the court reporter please swear the witness?
Please raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give here today will be the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. We're all set.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Justin Gossett.
Good morning. My name is John Thomas. I'll be taking your deposition this morning. You understand that you're here today in your capacity as the corporate representative?
I do.
And I wasn't there, but my understanding is that your deposition was taken before in an individual capacity.
That's correct.
What is your professional address?
Office address? Or
Yes.
Yeah, it's 5404 Cypress Center Drive, Suite 350, Tampa, Florida.
And do you live here in Tampa as well?
I live about 20 miles north in Lutz.
And who are you employed by?
Invitation Homes Realty.
And what is your position with Invitation Homes Realty?
I'm the Vice President of Operations for the Tampa market.
So Vice President of
Operations.
Operations. So what does a Vice President of Operations do?
Oversees aspects of all market operations. I would call it relating to three pillars of leasing, property management, and the third being rehab, turns, and maintenance operations. I've got a team of about 130 associates total in the Tampa market that report under those departments, and just oversee the overall, financial success of the market and, customer service, and making sure we deliver and maintain clean, safe, functional homes to residents.
Okay. And so what are the boundaries of your jurisdiction or area that you cover?
The Tampa market is anything from Spring Hill down to Fort Myers, Cape Coral, out to Polk County. So it's about 12,500 homes approximately in the market.
Must be a busy guy.
Yes.
And then how long have you been working at Invitation Homes?
I've been with the organization for almost 14 years. Started in the Atlanta market, relocated to Dallas, Texas in 2016, was there for about a year, and then actually this month I've been in Tampa as the Vice President of Ops for 9 years.
9 years in Tampa?
9 years in Tampa.
Wow. Why don't you tell me about your educational history?
I have a bachelor's in business administration from Georgia Southern University.
Any master's degrees or anything like that?
No master's degree.
And then do you have any certificates or any additional training as it pertains to what you do for Invitation Homes?
I have my real estate license.
Anything else?
No.
In terms of the maintenance side of things, I think you said turns and operations. Do you have knowledge, general construction knowledge, or have you acquired that while working at Invitation Homes?
I have. Yeah, just general knowledge of the rehab, turns, and maintenance side of the business.
Do you have any sort of contractor's license or anything like that?
No.
who do you report to?
Randy Gray,
G-R-A-Y.
Gray.
And what does Mr. Gray do?
He's the SVP of operations for the Southeast, which consists of all of our Florida markets and Texas markets.
Do you know who Mr. Gray reports to?
Yes, I do.
Is that the CEO or someone else?
The COO,
And who is that?
that is Tim Lobner, Lobner.
Okay, and then, like, you mentioned kind of three pillars. So, in terms of leasing, well, actually, let me ask you this. We're here today for a fire that occurred on December 16th, 2023. Were you employed at Invitation Homes at that time?
Yes,
Were you the director of operations for Invitation Homes at that time?
Vice President of Operations.
Sorry, vice president of
Yeah,
operations.
correct.
At that time, I'm just going to refer to that date as like the fire or the accident, okay?
Okay.
I'd like you to assume that I'm talking about the December 16th, 2023 date. At the time of the fire, who reported to you for leasing?
My director of leasing experience is Melinda Adams.
Okay, and then you mentioned marketing. I'm not really that concerned about marketing, but is there someone that reports to you for marketing?
Marketing is run through our central office.
Okay,
The
so I'll
three
skip that.
pillars were leasing, property management, and
Oh.
rehab turns and maintenance.
Property management. And then what was it, turns and,
Rehabs, turns, and maintenance.
okay, who reported to you for property management?
At the time, it was Lorelli, Loreyly, McKinnon, Mackinnon.
And does that individual still work for Invitation Homes?
No.
And then what about rehabs, turns, and maintenance?
James Staples.
Okay, and I actually did take the deposition of James Staples,
Yeah.
so I know who James Staples is. And he would report directly to you, and I believe when I took his deposition, he testified that he was over the Tampa area.
He is over the Tampa area. That's correct.
Now, do you have detailed knowledge about the steps or requirements, like what's supposed to be done for a turn? Or would James Staples have that detailed knowledge?
I have knowledge of that. Depends on the questions you're asking. I feel like I have a pretty detailed knowledge overseeing the market.
Okay, cool. And James Staples, he was in that position at the time of the fire?
Correct.
Before you worked at Invitation Homes, where did you work?
I worked for a multifamily organization, Lane Company, Lane, based in Atlanta.
What was your position there?
I was a assistant property manager and a property manager, and then also worked in our corporate office at one point as an administrative executive assistant.
And from what years did you work there?
I was there from approximately August of 2009 through August of 2012 when I started with Invitation Homes.
Tell me about any training that you had while working at Lane Company as it pertains to property maintenance.
Just really general knowledge and, any recurring training required, no certifications.
Did you have any specific training on smoke alarm systems, including carbon monoxide detectors?
We have, most organizations I've been with, there's some sort of, general training and guidance on smoke detectors, general safety protocols, safety trainings on a recurring basis. I don't recall the specifics with Lane Company. That was a while ago at this point.
Understood. Where did you work before Lane?
Worked for another multifamily company called the Dovetail Companies, Dovetail.
What was your position there?
That was a position, I started in 2005, May 2005, I believe, as a leasing agent, and then was later promoted to assistant property manager and then interim property manager before. That was a student housing complex. I was there while in college, actually, before I graduated in 2009.
Okay. And then while you were in college, or actually, let's say before Dovetail, did you work at any other type of property management company?
No, that was 2005 was when I got into the industry.
That was your introduction?
Yeah.
For student housing?
That's right.
Okay. Let's talk about any training at Invitation Homes. Did you have any specific training about smoke alarms or carbon monoxide detectors?
We do, as an organization, recurring monthly safety meetings and training. We have a policy in place, which, our teams are well versed on, and nothing specific outside of, just recurring safety training that we have.
Was there any safety training as it pertains to the expected duration, or actually, let me ask you a different way. Was there any training as it applies to the UL guidelines as to how long a smoke detector is warranted for under the UL underwriting guidelines?
Any training that we conduct would be information that's included in our policy, which outlines some of the local state guidelines and organizational guidelines.
Okay. Is it Invitations Homes policy to abide by any state and federal guidelines as it pertains to smoke detectors?
It's what's in the policy, which was documented April 2022, is what we follow. That incorporates some of the state policies.
Sure. And I think there's a specific section for Florida, if I remember correctly. Yeah. As it applies to what would be required in Florida, because I'm sure every state has different requirements.
There are Florida requirements in the policy. That's correct. It's outlined. Each state requirement is outlined in the policy, I believe.
Okay. So I want to show you, and I'll mark this as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1. This is the Deuces Take-em notice. Do you have a copy?
Thanks.
Probably one of the larger notices that I've seen. It's about 25 pages, but have you ever seen this document before?
I have.
Have you had an opportunity in preparation for your deposition today to review it?
I have.
Okay, great. So we'll go over it. So the deposition today is for THR Property Management LP. What is THR Property Management LP?
It's the management entity for Invitation Homes, Inc.
I see. And now, do you directly work for THR Property Management?
I technically work for Invitation Homes Realty and have oversight over THR Property Management.
Okay, thank you.
It's the brokerage is Invitation Homes Realty.
I see. Do you actually know anyone that works for THR Property Management LP, or is it more like a holdings company?
I do, yes. If we have associates that aren't licensed, they are under THR Property Management.
Okay. Who's the, I guess it's a LP limited partnership?
That's correct.
Do you know who like the managing partner is?
I can explain the corporate structure.
Sure, maybe that would be an easier way to go.
I mean, you know, Invitation Homes, I think, just to get ahead of some of the questions, is a publicly traded REIT. We do business under Invitation Homes Operating Partnership, which is a subsidiary, and then THR Property Management is the management entity, okay, sort of concurrently operating with the brokerage, which is Invitation Homes Realty. And then we have multiple entities which actually own and hold title for those properties.
Okay, understood. Because there's another, I think it's an odd name, 2018-3 IH Barber. I'm guessing that's like a limited partner.
That's a legal entity that actually holds ownership in property.
Okay.
And we have roughly 50-ish legal entities just in Tampa.
Do you know who, so is the 2018-3 IH Barber, is it just a holdings company? I mean, there's not going to be like a bunch of employees, or are there?
I refer to it more as the ownership entity
Okay.
for this specific property.
Are there people that actually work for that entity?
The actual people that do the property management work under THR Property Management.
Yeah, I understand that, but is there, like, could you tell me who's in charge of 2018-3 IH Borrower?
Specifically, I'm not aware of actual individuals that work under the ownership entity. When I say work under the ownership entity, like that is what's on their actual paycheck. Like most of the management team is affiliated with THR Property Management or Invitation Homes Realty, depending on whether they're licensed.
Okay. Thanks, that's kind of helpful.
It's confusing, yeah,
Yeah.
I realize.
I used to be a real estate attorney, so I actually understand
Yeah.
the structure, but
Yeah.
I can just trying to understand it to see if there's any other people I need to possibly depose if there was a different president of a different company. But
Of course.
so it sounds like all three companies work in unison with each other.
Well, not necessarily, but I would say like the Invitation Homes brand is, affiliated, and how we do business through the property management company. There is some connection, obviously, between the three with the structure that's in place.
Okay, in terms of the properties that are managed in like Tampa, who's in charge of all that? That would be you, right?
Well, I oversee the market, yeah, and so THR Property Management, either THR Property Management or Invitation Homes Realty.
Okay, who's in charge of like the maintenance and repairs for single-family homes in the Tampa market?
THR Property Management.
Okay, and you oversee THR Property Management, right?
That's correct. For
And you
Tampa,
work
for Tampa.
for Tampa, and you work for Invitation Homes Realty.
Correct. Invitation Homes Realty, yeah.
Tell me about like your day-to-day responsibilities as the vice president in terms of those three pillars that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, my effort and responsibility as the market leader is really to, as I mentioned, ensure the financial success of the organization and also provide, the right customer service to our residents. And then also, coach and develop leaders to continue to advance their careers. And so I've got a team of about 20 people leaders that I work really closely with in each of those three pillars to advance their careers and also help them understand the business to effectively and consistently operate the business on a day-to-day basis. So in general, just a lot involved in that, of course, but really having oversight over the three, departments. I really get into details with each of my directors, with weekly one-on-ones and a regular cadence of meetings to drive consistency and cross-collaboration. And so I would say in a general sense, that's my mission and sort of purpose as leader of the market. There's a lot that goes into that, of course.
So when I was looking at the smoke and carbon monoxide alarm policy, it says like Invitation Homes on it. Do those policies come from Invitation Homes, or do they come from THR Property Management?
When you see Invitation Homes in a lot of documents, it's referring to the brand Invitation Homes, but the actual associates that are managing and writing many of these policies are THR Property Management.
Okay. Do you know who the president is of THR Management?
Currently,
Yeah.
Tim Loebner is our COO and president. At the time, Charles Young.
Does Charles Young still work for them?
No.
Did Charles Young, was he also employed by Invitation Homes?
He was, I don't recall a specific entity for him. I believe his title is on the lease agreement. He signed the lease agreement. Anybody under operations is operating under THR Property Management to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
And that would be information that would be publicly disclosed through our proxy online as a publicly traded company, being that he's an executive was an executive of the company.
So he signed on behalf of 2018-3 IH Borrower LP.
Yeah, that's the legal entity, which is, I believe, referred to as the landlord and the owner. So he's signing on behalf of the owner.
Okay, and my question pertained to THR Property Management. Was he also the president of THR Property Management?
I think it's probably best to look online for those specifics and differentiation. To the best of my knowledge, though, he is similar to the structure in our markets. He is operating as we are with THR Property Management.
Okay. And THR Property Management is under Invitation Homes Realty?
THR Property Management is the management entity. Invitation Homes Realty is the brokerage.
Who's in charge of who?
So Invitation Homes, Inc. is a publicly traded REIT, and that we do business through Invitation Homes Operating Partnership, also referred to as IHOP, and then THR Property Management is the management entity. That's how we conduct operations.
Okay.
And then Invitation Homes Realty, if you look at that side by side with THR Property Management, is the brokerage entity. And so the differentiation between THR Property Management and Invitation Homes Realty as the brokerage entity is that anyone under Invitation Homes Realty has a real estate license, and then THR Property Management, those typically aren't licensed associates. That's all to the best of my knowledge.
So do you work for Invitation Homes Realty or Invitation Homes Incorporated?
Invitation Homes Realty.
Does Invitation Homes Incorporated, do they have a physical presence in the state of Florida?
Check the form, you can answer.
Invitation Home, could you repeat Invitation Homes? Did you say
Incorporated,
Inc.?
so like
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Invitation Homes Inc. is the publicly traded REIT. And so, once again, when we refer to Invitation Homes, a lot of time it's the brand. And so, it depends on what specifically you're referencing. I mean, if you were to go on our website online, it's branded as Invitation Homes, and you would be able to search and see properties in 16 different markets. And so if you're asking me if we have a presence, I would say yes, because a presence could be considered, a social presence or public presence, which you can go on a website and, research that information.
Thank you. Does Invitation Homes Incorporated have employees, and in particular I'm interested in this December 16th, 2023 time period. Do they have any employees that were located in the Tampa area that managed or helped manage operations, including rehabs, turns, and maintenance?
No, associates are under either Invitation Homes Realty or THR Property Management, one of those two entities.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the, I was looking through some of the documents that were produced for your deposition, and it looks like there was some sort of software that would help manage any repairs and maintenance, and I think pro care visits, I think is what you call them. Is that software that was developed by Invitation Homes Incorporated?
We use a third-party provider to manage the maintenance aspects, occupied maintenance. Lesson is the company that we use, and that software is typically, if you see on the maintenance side with how residents enter work orders, is software that they've built and developed.
Okay. In terms of, like, in the Tampa area, 2023, and who's sending who for maintenance calls and things like that, is that handled directly by Invitation Homes Incorporated?
That's handled through Lesson. Those work orders are typically entered the majority of time either by residents on a mobile app, or they're called in by residents. Or at times, we may enter work orders manually into the Lesson portal. But they really own the process for making sure work orders are completed.
So this Lesson software, is that just like a third party that you pay?
Lesson is the organization that we work with. It's a third party we use for our maintenance of homes. And so the software is software that, or the technology that they've developed.
Okay. Do they actually perform maintenance services?
There is an entity of Lesson that have a direct team of maintenance technicians that do service. Most of our work in the market is through third-party vendors, which Lesson hires and onboards and screens.
And that was in place in 2023?
That's correct.
And then I would imagine, well, I think when I talked to Mr. Staples, you do have some maintenance personnel, or at least people that oversee maintenance, that are with Invitation Homes.
We do, yeah. We typically do, I would say, approximately 40 to 45% of our maintenance work in-house, with a team of about 30 to 35 maintenance technicians. The majority of our work is vended out through third-party vendors with Lesson. I will note, though, that all of that work, whether it's an in-house Invitation Homes maintenance technician or Lesson, that all runs through this Lesson maintenance portal, which is the technology that they've built, and they help manage and oversee operations of that maintenance work.
Is Lesson also owned by Invitation Homes?
No.
So in terms of like the work orders, I was like looking over some of the work orders. In this case, how would I know if it was an individual from Lesson or if it was an individual from Invitation Homes?
In the work order, you would see a designation of the vendor name. And if it's an Invitation Homes work order rather than a third-party vendor, it would designate Invitation Homes, and then we would see an Invitation Homes maintenance technician's name as the service tech. If it was a third-party vendor, the company that's the third party we're using, plumbing, HVAC, roofing vendor, so on and so forth, would be designated as the vendor name, and then their individual tech would be designated as the technician name.
Understood, thank you. In terms of vendors, how does Invitation Homes Realty and THR Property Management ensure that the maintenance being performed complies with your standard?
We have regular recurring calls with Lesson, as Lesson really oversees the performance management of those affiliates, where we get visibility into performance scorecards. And so we consult with Lesson and provide our feedback on a regular basis on items that we see and experience at the market level, but ultimately they own the facilitation of making sure the work is completed to standard.
How do they know what the standard is for Invitation Homes Realty and THR Property Management?
There are service levels and expectations in place. There's a master services agreement, a contract in place where they commit to standards. And then we also, on a recurring basis, reevaluate and have conversations as needed where, we see adjustments need to be made.
Understood. So like, for example, what I'm interested in this case is like smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, right? And obviously we talked about that Invitation Homes has a certain standard. How would have that standard been communicated to Lesson?
That's all through, formal documentation in the contract and agreement and the service levels that I referenced that are set. Usually it's priority levels that are established, and they have scripting and do training on their end. And so I would say there's really a 360-degree sort of accountability with making sure that standards are adhered to, whether it's Lesson or Invitation Homes, residents, any parties involved.
In looking through the materials, and in a little bit we'll go through them with you, but it looked like for some of the repairs, like even photos were taken like before and after, and they're documented within the software program. Is that one of the ways that that you verify, or Invitation Homes verifies that the work is being done to a certain standard?
That's correct. They're required to take check-in and check-out photos.
Okay.
And all of the checking in and checking out is done through the technology in the maintenance app. And so, yeah, we actually encouraged to take as many photos as possible because it's a way for us to really leverage the technology to have the best documentation.
Sure, and that makes sense. Does, and then I would imagine there'd be someone at Invitation Homes that would review that work.
It's a partnership, sure. Depending on the work, it may come to us if it's below or above a certain threshold, for approval. And so while Lesson owns, the performance management of the work, we are consulted on a regular basis where needed.
So for example, the fire occurred, as you know, 3828 Trenton Lane in Northport, Florida. And I was looking at some of the property management records, and it looks like the roof was replaced at one point. So something like that, I would assume that would need special approval because of the cost involved.
Typically, our team would be involved in review and approval for a work order that require like a roof approval. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me like what would need approval and what would not be need approval? Does it have to pertain to like a certain dollar figure or the type of work, if it required a permit, or what? How do you differentiate?
Of course, typically the NTE not to exceed is $250, and so anything above that, there's a grant of authority in place with specific thresholds based on position, and so based on the amount, it may go to a certain position within the organization to review and approve.
Okay. And then what sorts of jobs are like reviewed, like in terms of like, let's say it was Lesson, they are a contractor, not a Invitation Homes, or THR property management employee, what would be reviewed and what would not be reviewed in terms of work performed?
Yeah, so we have, if I take a step back, we have established pricing with our vendors, which really cuts down on a lot of the back and forth, and I would say establishes an expectation with what's required with the scope of work and the cost of work. Anything over that 250, based on our grant of authority, would go to either a customer service rep, field service on the maintenance side, a maintenance supervisor, a maintenance manager, which oversees maintenance supervisors, and then after that, the director of rehab turns and maintenance, which is James in this case.
I see. And then what type of work would James or someone in a similar position, what type of work would they want to review? So like, let's say that photos, or, let's say that, for example, let's say a bedroom needs to be painted. Would that be something typically where there'd be photos before and after, and that would be reviewed to make sure the work was done to whatever standard Invitation Homes has?
Yeah, it depends on that grant of authority and that approval threshold. Typically anything over $10,000 to $12,500 is something that Jim would approve, and then there are thresholds, up to $5,000 for managers, $5,000 to $10,000 in many cases for, up to $5,000 for supervisors, $5,000 to $10,000 for managers, and then Jim approves, and then I approve after that.
Is there anyone that goes after the work is performed and looks at the work to see if it meets the standard?
We do quality control. Yeah, we do quality control. As we see opportunities to improve, and once again, like Lesson owns, ensuring the quality and the standards are met with vendors and affiliates. They hold the vendors accountable for performance, whether that's quality, whether that's speed, or adhering to scope and costs that are set forth. And then, anything, once again, that is above a certain threshold, we're simply reviewing as it comes to us.
Wouldn't THR property management and Invitation Homes have to hold Lesson also to whatever standard or whatever contract that you have with Lesson?
There's absolutely a, dual accountability. We hold them to a certain standard. I would say that's accurate.
Okay, you mentioned that there was an app that the tenants would use. I guess they could report if there was a maintenance issue.
That's correct.
And I would imagine that there'd be certain maintenance items that would be of a that would be more important than others.
There are priority levels established. And so I would say based on the nature of the work order, there may be a different priority level established, whether it's a critical emergency or a standard work order.
Okay, so there's critical, emergency,
Yeah, and then routine standard.
routine standard.
Yeah.
Is there a, in terms of how quickly these are addressed, like how quickly is a critical issue supposed to be addressed?
We want to have typically somebody on site within 4 hours if it's critical, which would be examples of critical would be, you have a flood of the home.
Sure.
Or, something major.
Sure. Are there some electrical issues that could be considered critical?
Potentially, yeah. If there's a fire, yeah.
Okay. Emergency, what's the guideline with that? Like how many days or hours?
Yeah, within I believe it's 48 to 72 hours for emergency, or 24 to 48.
Which one?
I think it's 24 to 48 emergency. Yeah.
And then routine standard?
Within 3 business days, I believe.
Okay, what would be an example of an emergency but not critical?
I don't have the breakdown of everything, but it's all like Lesson manages this. It's all in scripting and based on the scripting and how the resident reports and how it's sort of coded on the back end develops. I mean,
Okay.
that's what determines the priority level. And so essentially, as they call in a work order or as they report an issue, based on the questions that are asked by Lesson in the portal, that will basically determine the priority level.
Understood. So in this case, like if there was a smoke alarm that was not operating properly, let's say it was beeping, or maybe a tenant tested it and it wasn't operational, do you know what category level would that be? Would that be critical, emergency, or routine standard?
The policy states, I believe, within 7 days for something like a smoke detector battery. And there may be one more, actually, category in it. I can't recall it right now, but we have all this documented with Lesson as far as the priority levels.
Is that something that you have with you here today, or that you
I
could
don't.
get?
Yeah, I don't have it, but yeah, we can absolutely. It's a quick one-pager. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Now, in terms of the app, I was looking at some of the work orders that were done in the past for 3828 Trenton Lane. And there was like an event timeline or show like when the work order went in, when the technician is dispatched, when they arrive, when they leave, that sort of thing. Is that part of this lesson system?
It is. Yeah, you can see that timeline, that event timeline in each work order.
And in terms of those notifications, does that also show up on the app for the tenant?
As far as their timeline, I don't believe they have visibility to all of the timeline details. They do have visibility to statuses and scheduled times and dates and sort of what to expect.
So the tenant would get some sort of notification that, oh, the technician is dispatched, the technician has arrived, that sort of thing.
They would have a scheduled date, and actually, like when a maintenance tech, whether it's vended or in-house, is on the way to an appointment, they'll typically call. But yeah, resident has visibility to scheduled dates and times, and those details through their maintenance app.
Are they able to even put in like specific notes about, hey, this is the specific issue that I'm having, or is it just like a drop-down menu where they just like pick something?
Yeah, they are able to enter details in the work order when they submit, and I think we have examples of that. The category, like the service category, the priority, what we were discussing earlier, is all prioritized based on troubleshooting questions that the resident fills out either when they call in a work order or they go to fill out the work order online. And so it's a combination of the two. But the residents do have an area where they can enter a detailed description of the work order or work that they think needs to be done.
Okay. Can you walk me through like the process? And obviously do you know what the address is for Lesson?
I don't know the specific address for Lesson. It's in Chicago. It's in the agreement that we have with them, I believe.
And Lesson is Lessen?
That's correct.
And then how does Invitation Homes track the work with Lesson?
We track the work through a dashboard and in the system that we have access to. And then they do regular weekly calls with us where we're able to keep an eye on status updates. They report to us on kind of performance of, what's going on in the market, basically.
In terms of if it was something, so if it's something that Lesson did, let's say that whether it was their employee or a contractor, do you pay Lesson regardless, or if there's a different contractor, do you pay the contractor, or does Lesson handle the payment to the contractor?
Check the form. You can answer.
Lesson handles payments to contractors, and we work with Lesson.
Okay. And then if it's, I know you're using the Lesson system, but let's say that it was an Invitation Homes Realty employee and or a THR property management employee using the Lesson app. Does Lesson, if it's your own employee, does Lesson get payment for that as well?
Do they get a payment for, could you be more specific with the question?
Sure. I thought you testified earlier that even your own employees get dispatched under the Lesson system. Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. So if your own employee gets dispatched under the Lesson system, do you have to pay Lesson for that, or how does that work?
Okay, got it. We don't, in-house, there's not a cost associated with an in-house work order for dispatching our internal team unless the resident no-shows. There may be a $75 trip charge. But typically, we're only invoiced through vended work.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And that's all tracked in the Lesson system. You can see that attached to the work order and proposals and all those details.
If it is an Invitation Homes realty and/or THR property management employee, is there a numerical value that's associated with any service that is completed at a property? And let me kind of explain it a little bit, what I mean by this. Like, even if there's not a separate vendor payment, are you still tracking the work and the time that an employee spends at a property? And perhaps there's even hard costs associated with that, like paint or smoke alarms or batteries, things like that.
Chapter 4. You can answer.
We have visibility to, usually we track the number of property visits and locations that our internal teams are visiting each day. And so outside of that, we look at percentage of work that we're doing in-house. But if you're talking about a cost associated, unless there's a chargeback, there's no like invoice amount for work that our teams are doing. If there are parts involved for general in-house work, we use a separate system, a batching system for inventory. We have Invitation Homes branded vans where we carry inventory for basic things that, basic repairs that techs can do at homes.
Is there a guideline, whether written or oral, that differentiates between when a contractor is to be used versus an employee of Invitation Homes Realty and/or THR Property Management?
Don't have real specifics on guidelines of when to assign. Basically, we assign any work that requires certifications and licenses through vendors. So you're talking, major HVAC repairs, roofing, major plumbing items. Those sort of things are always going to be assigned to vendors. And so we try to do as much work in-house as we can, but we have to have the right, training, certifications, and everything that's required.
Sure, that makes sense. In terms of replacing, I'm not talking about replacing batteries, but replacing smoke detectors. Is that something that an Invitation Homes Realty and/or THR Property Management employee could do, or would that be something that you would hire out?
We can. Yeah, we typically our in-house maintenance team, if needed and as identified, we'll replace those when they're on site with occupied maintenance visits.
Okay. Does some of the decision to hire an outside contractor also deal with the availability of your in-house guys? Like if they don't have the capacity, and then is it also hired out?
That's accurate.
So let's say if there's a contractor that performed work at a property, who verifies, or how is that verified that it is done to the standard that is required by Invitation Homes Realty and/or THR Property Management LP?
It's all documented in the system, and so there are checks and balances from a lesson perspective and an Invitation Homes perspective to make sure that we're adhering to the standards based on the work that's being done and whether it's vended or in-house work.
But I mean, who does that though? Is there a person that is in charge of like going through and looking and, okay, this was done, this wasn't done? Like what does that process look like?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of auditing from a technology perspective and having specific leaders in certain roles audit on a recurring basis, and quality control through performance management, regular vendor meetings, regular in-house maintenance tech meetings. And so it's probably a little bit of all of that. And, it happens on a recurring basis.
Okay. And then this online portal system with the app that you mentioned, is there any other system that's utilized by Invitation Homes or THR property management that also tracks repairs and maintenance of properties in the Tampa area?
So anything that is repairs and maintenance through the occupied side of the house will go through our lesson portal. And then on the rehab and turn side of the house, when a home is vacant, we have a separate team of superintendents that handle basically going out, scoping a home, identifying what might need to be done, and then delivering the clean, safe, functional product on the back end prior to a home being reoccupied. And so like differentiating the occupied side of the house and the vacant side of the house, anything occupied is run through Lesson and their technology, and vacant turns or rehabs are run through our internal team of superintendents.
Okay. And is there a specific software program that's used for that, for turns and rehab?
Yeah, we have developed a scoping technology through Blueprint, is what we call it, and that's all run through Salesforce, and all the documents that we have are housed in Salesforce for scopes and bids and approvals of those scopes, any change orders.
Okay. In terms of the documents that were produced for your deposition today, well, actually, let me ask you this. What documents did you review in preparation for your deposition today?
I reviewed, anything that was provided as far as policies, work orders, lease agreement, photos, check-in, check-out photos, cause and origin report.
Okay. In terms of the work orders that you reviewed, were those all lesson work orders, or were some of them through Salesforce? Or
The work orders all go through Lesson. The only thing that goes through Salesforce is vacant turn work, which typically is scopes and change orders for the rehab and turn side of the business. So yeah, the work orders that I reviewed were all inputted into Lesson.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is, in looking at some of the documents, it looked to me like before Mr. Rhodes took occupancy, that there had been a rehab of the property.
Yeah, there would have been a rehab of the property when we acquired the home. And so I'll differentiate between a rehab and a turn. A rehab is the initial post-acquisition rehab that takes place after we acquire a home. And so I believe, once again, I reviewed the documents. I don't recall all the specific dates, but I believe in 2013, after we acquired this property, is when we would have done that initial post-acquisition rehab. And the reason we differentiate that is because typically when we acquire a home based on the needs of that specific property, we will invest, roughly on average 20 to 30K in properties in some instances. And so the turn side of the business is anytime a resident moves out after that initial post-acquisition rehab, those records are referred to as turn records.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. So in terms of a turn, is that would also be documented in this Blueprint Salesforce?
Yeah, Blueprint is a relatively, I would say, and I don't recall the exact date, we enhanced that technology, but it could have been 2023, but before that it was a technology called CMP. But whether it's CMP or Blueprint, or any technology that we've used on the rehab and turn side of the business, the output of the scopes, which the technology I'm referring to is how superintendents write scopes, the output of those scopes rolls into Salesforce, and that's where the documents, PTLs, scopes, those are uploaded. And I think I reviewed some of those examples as well with recent rehabs or turns.
So in terms of a turn, I'm assuming that someone would walk the property to determine what would be needed for the next tenant
That's correct.
and to make sure that the property meets the standard for Invitation Homes.
That's correct.
And then is there like are you familiar with the term of a punch list?
Yeah, there's a checklist that everybody, all of our superintendents, fill out, and there's standards for turns and how they scope homes. And honestly, it even goes back to a pre-move out consultation that we do. Typically, we do a pre-move out consultation around 21 days in advance of the turn, and that's a physical meeting with the resident to get an idea on what might need to be done in the home and get feedback from residents, review work order history, review all the details so that they can have an idea going into the turn of what might need to be done. But to answer your question, yeah, typically the superintendent will walk the home and document anything that needs to be done specifically.
And they would take photos as well?
They take photos, that's correct.
Did you review, in preparation for your deposition today, any photos that would have been kept either in the CMP or the Blueprint or Salesforce software or any other software that was used by Invitation Homes as applies to any photographs that were taken for turn?
I did review photos, yeah, for turns.
Okay. Tell me about what you reviewed.
I reviewed, as we referenced with the maintenance work orders, we always try to take pictures of, front and back of the home or from an angle, and then anything that's identified in the scope that needs to be addressed, we try to take pictures. So I don't recall like all the photos that I reviewed. I just know in general I reviewed the specific scopes, which I think we have, and then photos that correspond with those scopes that were provided.
Okay. But do you know if those photographs were produced to your council?
Anything that I reviewed would have been produced to council, because that's what I reviewed, was everything that we've produced.
Was there anything that you reviewed that you did not give to council?
I don't believe so.
In terms of your policy for smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, is that policy given to contractors working with Lesson?
Does the policy get into contractors working with Lesson? I don't believe that's outlined specifically in the policy.
It is not?
We have the policy. I don't believe. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Like maybe I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. Maybe that would be more simple. If I was working for Lesson, either let's say as a contractor, how would I know what the policy is for Invitation Homes Realty and or THR property management as it pertains to smoke and carbon monoxide detectors? Because you have a Florida-specific policy.
Of course. Yeah, Lesson's well aware of our policies and procedures, and any of those documents is part of their standard service levels that they adhere to. So
that's part of that master service agreement?
I don't know if it's specifically in the master services agreement, but I know that we communicate our expectations and policy procedure requirements. That's all communicated to Lesson.
Now, if it was cheaper not to adhere to the policy, would you go with the cheaper option, or is the standard and they're required to abide by the standard in the policy?
Check the form. You can answer.
We don't just go with the cheaper requirement. We make the best financial decision, not only for the company, but, for the resident, for our customers, to make sure, that we have a clean, safe, functional product, whether that's in the turn side of the business or the occupied side of the house.
Is safety something that's important to Invitation Homes Realty?
Of course.
Why would that be?
Our standard is to deliver a clean, safe, functional product to all residents. I've said that a couple times, and we want to establish safeguards, that allow residents to enjoy the home.
When policies are not adhered to or not followed, can that create a hazard?
Check the form. You can answer.
I think that's accurate.
Do smoke alarms save lives?
I believe they are safeguards to help contribute to creating an environment that might save lives, but do they save lives in every case? Clearly not.
Is it safer to have working smoke alarms than not having working smoke alarms?
Absolutely. I believe it's safer, and I also believe that the more we have a 360-degree culture of accountability with Invitation Homes and Lesson and the resident, that each party plays a part in making sure we create the safest environment, I would say, possible.
Thank you. Would it be unreasonable for a property management company not to have working smoke alarms in a residential home?
Would it be unreasonable for a company to not have? I think, the standard as outlined in our policy is that we would have working smoke alarms. The goal is to have, working safety equipment in each home.
Would it be unreasonable for a company, even with a policy such as yours, to disregard that policy and not have working smoke alarms in a residential home?
We would not disregard the policy. That would, impact the potential safety, obviously, of any home if you disregard any policy. And so if you're asking me, is it unreasonable? I can't imagine anyone just disregarding an important policy.
Okay. Would it be dangerous to disregard that policy?
Check the form. You can answer.
It could be dangerous.
I think we've been going a little over an hour, so why don't we take a little bit of break?
That works.
How long do you want?
Going on the record, the time's 10:07 a.m.
5 minutes, okay?
Yeah, that works.